Trustees Committee, September 10th. I need a motion to approve the agenda. Motion's been made and supported. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's carried. We come to the public comment section. Any public comment? Any public comment? Hearing no public comment, we'll move on to committee items. Minutes of the August 13th meeting. We have a motion and support. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Those motions carried. Airport semi-annual report. Morning, Juan.
Morning. How's everybody doing? Pictures worth 1,000 words. Good morning, everybody. The semi-annual report for the airport, and as we're all aware, the runway 725 construction was completed in April with the grooving and the brand new markings on the runway, so they can be seen real nicely right now. We also went ahead and celebrated the anniversary of the airport, the 90th anniversary, and the rededication of the runway. And just taking a quick look back, we can't start an airport presentation without looking back into where we were. And 10 years ago, in the photo, you can see that the 624 runway was still about 350 feet from the airport road. And the 1432, they were starting to do the shifting of the runway about 600 feet away from Wildwood Avenue. And we extended that runway from 3,500 feet to 4,000 feet. Looking ahead to now, and this was a photo from June, and the photo shows basically now we have a 4,000-foot crosswind runway that meets all the safety requirements of the FAA. And the old runway 624, you can see the remnants of that runway on the southwest part of the airport. And we have the brand new 725 runway, which is the same length as the 624. And basically, the reason we spent $49 million doing this is so that we wouldn't lose the 5,000 plus foot length of the main runway for the airport. Most of the corporate aircraft in the United States, they're looking at a 5,000 plus foot runway in order to come in and operate. And so without the shifting of the runway and the runway safety areas, our 5,350-foot runway will have been closer to 4,600 feet. And that will meant that most of the corporate traffic that we can now accommodate on the airport will be gone. They wouldn't be coming to Jackson. So how are we doing right now? We have all of the county-owned hangars are rented. We have a revenue of about $100,000 on the rentals of those hangars. And we also have an additional $110,000 revenue annual on the leased properties that we have on the airport. On top of that, we have another $150,000 a year revenue from the commercial property rentals on the airport, like the control tower, the restaurant, the fixed base operation on the airport. Our operations are rebounding now that we have a fully functional airport. They're up about roughly almost 7% from 2017, but our fuel sales are down close to 13%. If we look at the sketch, and we can see that our operations year to year are up, and our fuel sales are down. We still aren't quite sure why the fuel sales are down. We're thinking because of the advent of NetJets and Delta jets. Those are rental jets as opposed to corporate-owned aircraft. they come in and they drop off passengers or pick up passengers, and they're not buying fuel. So that's something we're going to have to reevaluate in the future as far as, do we want to increase our landing fees if an aircraft is not buying fuel? We get about 8 cents a gallon for every, on fuel sales. So that's quite a bit of revenue for the airport. So right now we're just trying to figure out, we have higher corporate operations than last year, but they're not buying the fuel like they used to. Overall, we're ranked number 10 in the number of operations statewide. And if we look closer at airports that don't have airline traffic, we're number 2 right behind Detroit City Airport. So the airport is pretty healthy, it's rebounding nicely, but we still have a little bit of work to do to regain some of the traffic that we lost during the construction. Talking specifically about corporate operations, the operations for this year are almost doubled what they were last year. We're only halfway done with the year. This is January through the end of June operations. So we're seeing almost 1% of the airport operations are corporate aircraft coming in and basically either picking up passengers or dropping off passengers at the airport. This is good. Obviously, we'd like to see that better. We'd like to see that percentage be closer to 5 to 10% of the total operations for the airport, and that's something that we've got a lot of work to do on. So what are we looking future-wise for the airport? We have a lot of infrastructure improvements that we still need to do. We have the buildings on the airport have to be maintained. Airport equipment has to be maintained or repurchased. And then we have the federal plan. And the federal plan is a 10-year plan that looks 10 years ahead as to what will the airport need with federal funds. If we look at 2019 through 2020, the next big project will be the ramp or the apron in front of the terminal building and in front of the corporate hangars. That pavement has got a PCI or pavement, the pavement index, pavement condition index is less than 35%, so it's breaking up really badly, and it's something that needs to be done. The FAA has determined that to be the #1 priority for the airport, and so that's something that hopefully, unofficially, I understand that the FAA will once again give us a good chunk of money for that project for 2020. It'll be at a 5% as opposed to so the local share will be 5% instead of 2.5% like the previous runway projects. Okay, we also need to update the airport layout plan, which is sort of the master plan for the airport, and that will show us what part of the property can be used for additional hangar development, what kind of the property can be leased out for either non-aviation type of developments or for sale. And we don't really know exactly what that property is until we update the airport layout plan. Right now we've got 950 acres, and not all of that property is needed for the runway safety area protection. So we are possibly going to be able to not only do additional development or lease agreements with, right now I've had 2 individuals that are interested in building corporate hangars on the airport, and we're not able to tell them where to build those hangars. On top of that, we can also look at what's known as concurrent land use, which is use of airport property while still maintaining ownership of the property, uses such as agricultural or solar farm type of uses. And we also need to maintain or repurchase the airport equipment. Right now, I've come up with a schedule of replacement on airport equipment. We have brand new pavements, and we need to maintain those pavements open 24/7 in all kinds of weather conditions. The snow removal equipment that we have is pretty old and dated, and that's something that we're going to have to look in the next few years as to whether we can purchase that equipment through the federal AIP program, or if it has to be a county purchase to maintain the airport open. Part of the grant assurances is that the owner of the airport, the sponsor, has to maintain the airport open in all types of weather conditions. We're lucky to have an excellent business plan that was approved in 2017, and that gives us a really good plan on how to develop the airport so it can be optimized and provide the maximum revenue to the county. And that's something that I'm going to be working on, not only following up with the small business owners in the community, but also with the corporations nationally to try and sell them the airport as a place to come in and either build in the county or to use the airport for facilities. Any questions?
No other questions?
Thank you.
Next one then. To my annual report.
Good morning. This is the Conservation District's biannual report, so we'll cover things, activities and events since this past March. First of all is the 2018 tree sale was, we sold about 25,000 trees, which I think equals about 80 solid acres of reforestation in Jackson County. 545 fruit trees, almost 1,000 berry bushes, asparagus, and all this fun stuff. 65 pounds of native grass. We had 21 volunteers for that, putting in over 210 hours of service for us. Also, we are still renting our no-till grass grain drill. We've rented it to 8 people so far this season and have planted over 55 acres of native grasses in Jackson County. Project What Red was a huge success this year. We had over 1,000 third graders from Jackson County. I am on the planning committee for that, and myself and my entire staff volunteer on the day. Also, Earth Day was on Earth Day this year at Cascades or Sparks Park. We had probably about 500 people come through on that. Adopt a Stream program, our last one was in May. We had 8 volunteers for that, and our next one will be September 29th. We already have 10 volunteers signed up for that. We were present at the Learning Fair and the Jackson County Fair. We also sponsored it's a AIS Landing Blitz, which is Aquatic Invasive Species Landing Blitz. We did that at the Portage Lake Boat Ramp at the Waterloo Rec area. We were also present at 5 other AIS blitzes in Jackson, Lenawee, and Washtenaw County, and that is part of our invasive species grant program. We also did nitrate and nitrite water screening. We advertised online and at the Jackson County Fair, and then they came into the office to drop off samples. The Great River Cleanup, I was a team leader for that just this past Saturday. And we were also part of the outdoor jamboree on Sunday at Lake Hudson Rec area. Some workshops and presentations that we've done. Our recycling coordinator has been very busy. She did a recycling presentation at Lumen Christi for the Environmental Club. And she also did a summer series at the Jackson District Library. One was all about metal, one all about paper, and one all about plastic. She also did a recycling presentation at the Jackson County ISD. And then more recently, August 23rd, she did a worm composting workshop, also at the library. So I'm now the proud owner of 500 composting worms. It's an interesting experience. They're just little red worms, and it kind of freaks me out still when I open up the lid. But I'm dealing with it. They might become office worms soon. That's why my husband doesn't want me to get rid of it, because we have a constant supply of fish and worms. Also, we had the 2018 sprayer clinic was on August 29th. That's what our Meat Tech hosts that. We had about 44 people in attendance for that. We had speakers from Consumers Energy talking about leasing land under power lines and energy conservation, and a speaker from Purdue University, and also a farmer from the River Raisin Watershed, as well as Farm Bureau came in and talked, our MEEP, and then NRCS, MDART, everybody had a little bit to say. I guess one of the big things this summer was our scrap tire collection event. The Conservation District hosted our own in the city. It opened officially at 9 o'clock. We had people there at 7:30, so we just started unloading they started unloading their own tires, and a lot of them ended up staying and volunteering for the whole day. We filled both of our trailers, so we probably had about 2,200 tires come in within a 2-hour period. So we actually had to start turning people away just after 10 o'clock. Next year, we're applying for the grant again. We're hoping to get enough where we can have 3 trailers at the event. We've already had, I believe, 13 out of the 19 townships express interest in taking part next year. We had 11 townships take place this year, and we collected just over 9,000 tires, scrap tires this year. Some current grants that we have, we still have our CTI grant, Hunter Access Program grant. This is going to be the last year for that. The DNR is taking the money that has been in the HAP program since the 1970s, and they're going to focus it on the chronic wasting disease areas and the tuberculosis areas. We had 1 year left under our current HAP contract for Mrs. Michelonis. She's Northern Jackson, Southern Ingham County. She's been in the program since the beginning. So, she gets very excited when people come. So I think this is kind of going to break her heart, but I've been talking to landowners around there, and they might offer to lease her property to help her with her taxes. Like I said, we had the scrap tire grant this year. We have our MEEP grant still, that we got that in October, and that has been renewed. And then Michigan Invasive Species Grant Program, we have a full-time employee for that. Our recycling coordinator also has done tons of community outreach, county recycling website, email and monthly news blasts, newsletters, recycling brochure. She's currently working on the 2019 recycling guide, and Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day is coming up on September 22nd. Some grant opportunities. Like I said, we applied again for the scrap tire grant that is due at I don't know if I put, it was not submitted September 7th, as I said in my report. It was supposed to be, but they switched the date to September 28th. So we're going to hold on and make sure everything's perfect before we submit it and see if we can get any other townships involved. And then we have applied for the second Michigan Invasive Species grant. This one is a $60,000 grant, and it would help with education and put a little bit more money into treatment options, and also cover a part-time assistant for our coordinator. Some upcoming events. Our budget hearing is coming up at the end of September. Jackson County Farm Fest is coming up this coming Saturday. It's an all-day event, free, family-friendly. Choate's Belly Acres, Ritter Mark Farm, and the Agri-Science and FFA programs at the Jackson Area Career Centers are all opening up their farms for the public to come and have a free tour. Household Hazardous Waste on September 22nd. It's from 9 to 2. Last year I had people lined up at 6:30, so I will be there at 6:30 a.m. It's a $5 charge, and I do have brochures if anybody would like to grab one. Adopt a Highway is coming up. Adopt a Stream is scheduled for September 29th. Our end of the year reporting, lots of that coming up. This is September is the end of our fiscal year. My annual plan of work, accomplishments reports, annual reports to everybody are due then. Our annual dinner, I'm already planning for that. That's coming up. It'll be January 22nd. Our speaker this year is Rebecca Grumit from MSU. She is a professor there, and she will be speaking about the truth about GMOs. And then I've already started planning for our 2019 tree sale. All the trees are ordered, and deposits are paid for. Is there any questions? Yeah.
The list, location, and times again for the household hazardous waste. We get calls at my office about
Okay,
stuff.
I can give you a flyer too, so you can answer the questions, but it's September 22nd from 9 to 2 o'clock. It's at the Jackson County Fairgrounds. Because of construction, It's going to be a little different than next year, so we're using the Blackstone Street entrance and wrapping around the outside of the track.
Okay. Also, how involved are you with the recycle brochure for next year?
I'm sorry, can
How
you
involved are you with creating?
preparing it?
Yeah,
If she has questions, I'll answer them. She's pretty much does the whole thing.
okay, because the market's very, very tight right now.
It's very tight
And
right now.
We're back to just like the very basics, and on plastics, I can only take 1 through 3s.
Okay,
The rest are contaminants now.
all right. And I know Granger called her also and is working with her on, I think they have a clean recycling program or something that they're trying to push.
Yeah.
So I can have her call you too, make
Okay.
sure all your information
Have her
is
ask for
updated.
Bill Thomas at my office.
Bill Thomas?
Yeah.
All right, I can do that.
Yeah, because it's really gotten tight, and the things that used to be movable are not anymore.
Okay,
Some of the companies are having to go clear to Cincinnati, Ohio to deliver product, and it's kind of ugly right now.
yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? John?
Regarding the tree purchasing program,
Yes.
when you say the trees have been ordered, this is for,
2019,
so this is for 2019, and then you're already looking to 2020 then for new orders, or do you guys order in bulk first and then?
no, I order usually in about August of 2018 for spring of 2019.
Okay,
So then,
okay, so we're looking at August for then next year?
yeah, we're buying for 2019.
Gotcha.
Catalogs go out at the beginning of January, take orders till March, and then everybody picks them up in April, and then the whole process starts over again.
Beautiful. And then regarding the HAP program, do you have any sense of, in terms of how many hunters may have utilized that program? I mean, any kind of sense of how many?
Yeah, I
hunters
don't have good numbers. I know that Mrs. Michelonis has, there's people that go there religiously. She's
Yeah.
had the same people going there for years. She allows 18 people,
Okay.
which I think is extreme, but she allows 18 people.
Okay.
And usually her book is full by the end of the, but I'm not exactly sure how many. I can find out.
That's okay. It's just, I'll do the follow-up on that. And
Okay.
I may contact you on that, but
Okay.
it's just, it's, when it comes to hunting land and opportunities, particularly in Jackson County, they're at a premium. And so
Right.
to lose that opportunity is,
It's
yeah,
sad.
it's sad. So, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Lori? Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you.
Now we have the Youth Center semi-annual report.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Kind of, no, it's not my birthday. February.
It's close.
But you can sing for me if you want. I'm okay. Okay, all right. Carrie Ann, you gonna lead? No. So, anyways, now that I gotta refocus. So, we're on track for admissions year-to-date from last year. Last year, into August, we had 194 admissions. We're at 190 right now. Back in, I think, November, you approved a new resident management system, and some of the reports are able to give us a better feel for the residents that we have had. I included some of those to break down as a breakdown of the population that we have brought in for this year so far. You can see those numbers there. I continue, I hope you never get tired of me talking about our Youth Arts Alliance program. That has been such an impactful program for our youth, and we continue to expand on our gardening program that we're partnering with Youth Arts Alliance. And this year, our treatment team, our treatment kids, were able to go to MSU and look at their agricultural program up there, and the eye-opening experience for the kids, many of whom have never been on a college campus at all before, really was remarkable. So them being able to see that the information that they were learning and have been learning in our gardening program, there is a potential career. There is some place that you can move forward with that. And just their responses to that really was a great experience. The next picture's here, and we've had a couple in this audience that were able to experience making some of those pictures in the bottom right one. But we did a mosaic tile workshop, and we partnered with Department of Aging and went over to the Crouch Center, and we had about 25 of their clients that came in while our treatment kids worked with them creating some of these mosaics. And then for our department head meeting, our treatment kids came in and worked alongside with department heads and elected officials of the county and helped create some of those panels there that you see. We've been really being intentional this year with trainings, and to year to date we have over 2,300 hours of trainings collectively within our staff of various items, and the breakdown is there. But I want to talk specifically about two of them, the human trafficking awareness and prevention. We have one of our staff that is involved with the county's, under the prosecutor's office, task force, and he is becoming our resident expert, and we have several staff that are going to a training next week or next month to try to understand a little bit more. We know we are hearing and we are experiencing youth that are coming through our facility that have been involved with trafficking. Already this year we've had 3 different times that the FBI has interviewed some of our kids because of when they've come in, and through our intake process there's a lot of red flags that we have learned to be looking for that indicate that these girls have been involved in some sort of trafficking, and of course we don't always know what the result of that investigation is, but the officers that working with us out of that task force have indicated it was a very beneficial meeting. So our staff are being very diligent in understanding those signs and trying to provide resources for these girls. The other thing is we just finished a book read, a book club for our entire staff on a book called Thinking Differently Rather Than Harder. And I have it titled under Autism Spectrum Disorder because that's where we initially started. We are seeing a lot of our youth that are either, one, having mental health issues, but then also falling along the autism spectrum disorder. As we started getting some training specific to that, we had Dr. Terry Pardee out of Spring Arbor University has provided several trainings for us. She has referenced this book multiple times. And this book actually is specifically focusing on fetal alcohol syndrome, that sometimes from what we're understanding, the traumatic event onto the brain in fetal alcohol syndrome sometimes mimics or also has liked results for those that are on the autism spectrum. And the thinking differently rather than harder really is challenging our staff truly for a paradigm shift of changing the old school juvenile justice rules and you must do this, because our kids aren't getting that, especially with the mental health that we are having. And I reached out to the author and spoke with her at lengths, and she talked that to her knowledge we're one of the first facilities in the entire nation that is being intentional understanding fetal alcohol syndrome and its impact on the juvenile justice system, as well as the impact of how they function within culture. So we're really trying to work on that, understanding we still have a responsibility for safety and security. There's rules, there's expectations, but how are we going to be doing things differently to express and to make sure and hold them accountable for that? Which leads me to just a little bit of a story of why we do what we do. Friday night, my wife and I went to a restaurant, and a former probationer of mine, back in my old days as a probation officer, she was working at this restaurant, and she saw me and immediately came running up to me. sometimes that's not always a good thing. But this particular probationer was a hard case, but ended up figuring life out. And she wanted to meet my wife, had never met my wife, and she proceeded thanking my wife for the services that she got through juvenile court, the services that she got at the youth center. She was in our day program, day treatment program, and quite honestly, the respect that she had gotten from the staff that had been working with her, and the accountability. Now, she said she did have one run-in with the law enforcement in courts as an adult that required her to grow up. And then she thought of all the tools that she was delivered and given to as a juvenile. And she's a 31-year-old productive, tax-paying member of society. That's what we look for. So, any questions?
Along those same lines, it would be interesting, and I don't know if the data exists or doesn't exist, but to know how many individuals do exit the system and really do integrate back into the community and do become those individuals who, are right there next to you working.
Right.
Because that whole recidivism issue is one, the state's, the jury's still out, obviously, but the state is doing away with the felony checkbox and the whole 9 yards, which, and we've done it at the college quite some time ago in terms of our hiring practices, because, that black mark, if we're not making strides to help individuals and to get individuals back on the right path, and we're continuous with that black mark on them, then the expectations are lower, and it becomes so much more difficult to integrate those individuals. It makes your job so much harder.
Yeah.
And so it'd be interesting if that data does exist, to have that in terms of how many individuals do exit the program and never find themselves back in it,
I know Commissioner Mahoney has asked me a couple times on that, especially with this new system, hoping to be able to, as we develop that database, because right now we have 9 months into it. And so as we develop that database, I think we're going to be able to find more of who has entered the system, because that is a database that between the courts and here we have. And then we assume and suspect, I guess, that those that aren't in there are those productive members, so the reverse of that. But it definitely is beneficial. I think we have to look broad term of why is it that we do what we do and not just rely upon some of those chance run-ins to get that feedback.
Yeah, and that's exactly what if there's some rubric that we could put in place in terms of the follow-up to talk to, the individual. I don't know if that exists, the ability to kind of have a follow-up and have that conversation, to really almost gauge, from the learned perspective of, individuals who, they may not be going back in the system, but that doesn't necessarily mean they've grown from it at all, versus those individuals that you do have that conversation with, who come up to you and say, look, I did an assessment, thank you. You take me from path A to path B, because as taxpayers, that ultimately that's the best, the reason that we have the programs in the first place. The flip side of that is simply dank prisons that you never get out from and throw away the key.
Right.
One way or the other. And so if the objective is to rehabilitate, the ability to come back and say, look, it's working, I think it gives us all some sense of what you're doing, but what we're all doing here in this team effort is having a beneficial impact. So.
Yeah, which is exactly why when that happened Friday night, I'm like, okay, I want to be able to give that story. Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next item is friend of the court semi-annual report. Morning, Sarah.
Good morning. Happy birthday. Thank you. It's not my birthday either, but it's going to be. I don't know. Somehow I got blamed for that. All righty. So moving right into my improvement goals, these were goals that I set for our office back in 2016 after evaluating our system and things that I wanted to look at really developing, showing some improvement, our appointments. So these are clients that want to talk to their caseworker. They don't want to listen to an automated line, that type of thing. They actually want to talk to a live body. So we allow our clients now to contact and have an appointment within 48 hours to talk to their caseworker about whatever their issue is, whether it's parenting time, support, you name it. They can talk to their caseworker. And you can see in the beginning, we were at 948 appointments per year. It's steadily growing, and it looks like we're on track to be about 1,100 appointments this year. I am hoping that those will go down as people get the questions that they need answered. But this is a good sign that people are utilizing the opportunity to talk to their caseworkers and not hiding from us. So that's a good thing that people want to talk to us. The parenting time complaints, we want to make sure that those are handled within 5 business days. When I first came on, some of those parenting time complaints were waiting weeks, if not months, to get processed. And as we know, if you see your child every other weekend and it takes weeks and weeks for those denials to get processed, then it turns into months before you have access to your kid. So we changed the process on that to make sure that those are processed quickly and swiftly so that people that are denied access to their children can get remedy as soon as possible. Support reviews were the other piece that we were working on to get those done within 90 days. Unfortunately, those at one point in time were extended out 6 months to a year and taking way too long. And when you're unemployed or have lost your job or have had a major change, can't wait that long for your support to change. So those are now down to 90 days. And we have 2 people that are specialized in it that crank out those support reviews. And as you can see, we've almost exceeded our year-to-date from 2017 with just our August support, or through August support reviews. So we're on track to have just under 1,000 support reviews done this year, which is excellent. Show cause collections, another area that I'm very proud of. As you can see, we've already exceeded our collections from 2017 with $127,000 collected on our Wednesday show cause hearings, and we're on track to collect over $190,000, which is excellent. And again, with the show causes, we've also had temp agencies and job placement agencies come in on those days. So if somebody genuinely comes in on those days and says, I can't get a job, we walk them right down the hallway and they can sit down and get placed in a job within the week. So we've tried to eliminate that barrier for them. The second section is the performance incentives. That is what the federal government measures for us on our performance. So support order percentage, you can see where we're at with that. And interestingly enough, I ran these numbers and then ran them again a couple of days ago, and we are actually up a full percentage point at the very minimum on every single one of these categories. So I should have waited another week to pull these numbers. But the support order percentage, we're on track with that just to get it up to the state goal. That one's always been a sticky one for us because we have to work in conjunction with the prosecutor's office. So that one's a sticky one for us. Paternity establishment, we're on track with. Current support, that one, for those of you that don't know, is when someone has a support order charge, that's the percentage of that full month's charge that we're able to collect. So if it's $100 and we only collect $60 a month, then it would be 60%. So that shows what that number is. And then the arrears case percentage, that number grows as the year goes on, because it's the number of cases or the percentage of cases that we actually get payment on towards the back child support or the arrears. So it starts at 0 at the beginning of the year every time and then just continues to grow. Number 3, our contract performance standards. These are new. So now our Department of Health and Human Services that has our other contract has decided they want some measurements for us that we have to meet. So these are brand new. And you can see there's timely enforcement, medical support, review and modification, and locate. The goal for the state right now is at 75%, and you can see they gave us our initial measurements, and we're doing very well in those. The timely enforcement, if there hasn't been a payment on a case, we need to show that we've taken some kind of action within 60 days on that case, whether we've sent it for credit reporting, scheduled it for a hearing, started a mod review, something is being done on those cases. Medical support is making sure that cases have medical ordered on them so that the children are insured. The review and modification, that actually went right in with my improvement goals because that measures that support reviews are done within 90 days. So all of my work to get that done actually went right into play with that new performance standard. And then the locate issue, that's the one that we are not doing as well on, and most of the entire state is struggling in that because our system isn't really designed for what they're measuring. So a case where someone has a bad address, they want us to locate that person within 90 days. And as we know, we're very transient right now, and people have P.O. boxes and things like that, and trying to locate people, it takes longer than 90 days sometimes to find people. We also found a glitch that it didn't matter if payments were coming in, if there was a bad address. So sometimes people who maybe are in the military and, that kind of thing, we thought that was a little odd that, we don't always need a good address, but the support's coming in and they're seeing their kids, so we should be kind of okay with that. So there's more to come on that one. Number 4, following up on the court innovations. Last year, we contracted with Matterhorn and Court Innovations to have texting notifications for our hearings, and that has been a wonderful technology. We get people in saying, yeah, I didn't get the notification in the mail, but I got a text saying that I had a hearing, so I'm here. So our no-show rate on those Wednesday show cause hearings was averaging about 55%, and it is down to 34%. So we're seeing improvement, and our collections are improving because more people are there, and we're getting improvement there. The Family Forward demonstration, that is underway now. It's been 2 years of planning. It's a grant program that provides free job training to payers of support so that they can improve their career opportunities and hopefully sustain and support their families better. So we're in the phase where we are actually having our clients in the trainings and getting that going, and then next year will be the assessment of what happened as a result of that training. Did they get better paying jobs? And so far it's been a mix of successes and failures. The clients that really want to go are going, and they're going to the training and improving themselves, but others we're having to call them pretty much every day to get them up and getting them to class. So it's like, come on, guy, come on. So, and then the last piece that I wanted to talk about is our supervised parenting time program that we have downstairs in our office. We recently were able to expand our services to allow for semi-monitored parenting time. This is a huge step. We are the first ones in the nation under this grant to offer this, because right now, if you have supervised parenting time, you have one-on-one with your child with a monitor for 1 hour once a week. Well, the problem with that then is eventually you have to move on from that. You have to be able to spend more than just 1 hour with your child, or potentially not. So the semi-monitored allows for a longer span of time with one monitor with multiple families at any given time. So that'll allow those parents to have a little more interaction with their child for a little bit longer, and less one-on-one, someone watching you the entire time, because the idea is that these families are going to be able to go out and eventually not be supervised. And then the third stage of it is going to be semi-monitored, where the families exchange. They check in with our center monitor, and then they have a planned place that they're going to go, whether it's running to McDonald's or going to the park or something like that, coming back, processing the visit, and then going about their business, so that eventually they will be able to have those unsupervised parenting time moments. Because let's be honest, with toddlers and things like that, an hour is one thing, but to go to a park and spend a couple of hours when they get tired and cranky and things like that, that's when they really need the support to make sure that they're parenting appropriately. So we're excited about the launching of that. So in 6 months when I come back, I'll have good news about that project. Any questions? Yes.
I would like to thank you for the job you're doing down there. You're very organized, systematic, and everything seems to be going in the right direction, and hopefully we have a lot of happy, smiling little faces.
I'm hoping.
You're doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Mike?
Sarah, the supervised time, what's the predominant reason why that is necessary? How would that come about?
Usually it's two general things. The center itself is free to anyone that has experienced domestic violence. So sometimes we have families where mom and dad have been in a battering relationship, and so they just cannot be in the same room with each other. So we supply the exchanges. And then there's a safety risk of whether or not the batterer is going to batter the children or manipulate them or try to in some way exert power and control over the other parent through the children. So the supervision hopefully prevents that from occurring, so they can just enjoy their children and the children can just enjoy their parent. The other part of that is that we have some parents that just flat out don't know their children. You know, whether the one parent left when they were pregnant or left and it took 3 years for them to actually get divorced, and now we're trying to reintroduce a child to a parent that they may not know. And for a child that's 2-3 years old, 6 months of not seeing a parent is a long time, you know. So we have those parents that maybe there was domestic violence in the past and the safety risk isn't as high, but they just honestly don't know their child, and there's no one that can do that supervision and that reintroduction. So the center offers that, and those are the families that really are going to be geared towards being able to move away from being supervised.
Sarah?
Thank you.
Moving on, we have Jackson County Department of Transportation underbody blades.
Sounds like exciting stuff, Christopher.
This is so exciting. We're getting ready for winter, I'm sorry to say. So the underbody blades is an annual bid that you see, and we have a recommendation for one of the vendors here, Wear Parts. It's a new vendor, but the blades they offer are a product that we're very happy with and we've used before. We're also trying a new blade, carbide steel, so we've ordered a few of those. They're much more expensive, but the theory is they'll last much longer, which avoids all the labor, time, and shutdown to change out blades. So we're going to experiment with those and see how long they last.
Go ahead.
How many of those carbide blades did you order?
Well, in the bid, we've set aside 20 sets, so it's just going to get us started to try it. If we like it, we may look to expand that. So,
How many do you go through a season on a truck?
regular blades, Bob, what would you surmise?
Depending on the winter, 10 sets.
Per truck? Yeah, per truck, and each truck uses
Regular,
2 or 3?
these two.
2 per underbody blade. So 8 to 10 sets of the normal blades. So if we think we can get carbide and maybe change once in a winter, I think that might be a win by some of the initial calculations we've done.
Originally, it sounded like a lot for an experiment,
Right,
but as many as you go through, and I knew it was fairly frequent, so
right.
good luck with that.
It takes 1 to 2 hours and 1 to 2 men to change the blades out each time. So when you rack all those costs up and compare, sometimes the material costs are worth it.
You have, visible from Elm Street, you have a whole flock of international, I think it's orange trucks sitting there. Are those waiting for fifth wheel plates, or are they going to get a dump body on them, or what?
Those are the 7 new plow trucks to be deployed this winter. So they're going in for a body build. At first, the chassis comes here for a check-in, and then they go off for the body build, which will be here very
Will
soon.
they be available when winter gets here?
That's the plan, right? Where did you go, Bob? There you are.
Yes, the plan is that they should be delivered to us like the end of November.
All right, good deal, thank you.
But that's what they are, there's 7 plow trucks. On the carbide blades, we have tried those in the past. This is supposed to be a different style, a different manufacturing process that's supposed to make them last longer. So that's why we're trying them again.
The last ones you tried, did they last longer?
They did, they probably held up twice as long. I mean, so we might have went through 3 or 4 sets instead of 7 or 8 or 10, depending on the weather, but, so they do hold up. But supposedly this process is supposed to be a better carbide insert and heat treating, and so we'll see if this lasts longer than the others. Hopefully they do.
It's not so break even.
Yeah, it's almost there. And if these last the way that they're sold to be, it very well could hit that break-even point to where it'd be more beneficial to use those.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing we're doing in the background is coaching our drivers on the amount of pressure to apply. Some of them are really eager to get that road super clean, and that's not always a good thing.
And on that, our vehicle mechanics are adjusting the pressures on the down pressures on those blades, so it won't be physically possible to put like 900 pounds of down pressure on it. We're going to regulate it back to like 400 or 500, so that should help on it too.
Of the carbide material, do you think that wears the road a little bit more than it normally would?
That's also something we're going to watch. Did you see that before, Bob?
It could, especially on the chip seal surfaces, but on the regular HMA roads, I don't think that there's ever been a significant wear factor from the blades.
Well, I know a lot of the teeth that you use on the different machines are all carbide material to chew the road up.
Well, this is a flat blade. It just kind of cuts off the top. It doesn't like have the teeth to grind down in. Our graders and stuff like that do have carbide teeth on them, but they're replaceable teeth that are intended to cut into the road. But these are just a flat with carbide inserts in them.
John?
Just on that bid, and it's probably good to educate a little bit, but if an individual were to get into that bid and kind of break those numbers down, it looked like if you broke that bid up between Wear Parts and St. Regis, there was a savings there, of about $7,000 between the two, but, you know, that comes with dealing with two parts suppliers, it comes with, you know what I mean, and so, it's, even though the bid ultimately could have been made cheaper, going with one provider has its benefits. Right, Chris, can we speak to that? Because I guarantee somebody's going to take a look at that and ask that question.
Are you saying basically to give St. Regis the bid for the carbide? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, the carbide and the 9-foot looks like they were lower on both those in comparison to Wear Parts. Just taking a look at both of those I mean, again, and there are advantages to dealing with one supplier, and I assume that's probably what went into the full bid going to one entity.
It is, and we can check on the viability or possibility of breaking the bids or having a dual award on the carbide portion. We do try to take the bid in aggregate to honor the economy of scale, the shipping costs. The vendors sometimes put pricing wherever they want, but it's the total that they understand wins them the bid. So we have to make sure we don't damage our relationship and the trust we have with the vendors in our bid process and so forth. But we can check into that. I noted the same thing, to be honest with you. So,
Any other questions? I'll be looking for a motion to move this to the full board.
Support.
Motion's been made and supported. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
we at JCDOT like to build roads, so we're looking forward to building King Road. It's a project for next year, and so we have a contract before us. We have bad news from the bids that were just received on the project last week. It's about 12 to 13% over the engineer's estimate, and the big factor that we've discovered is asphalt. And you might recall a couple of years ago, we were talking about asphalt prices climbing, and sure enough, it's happening. So we're at 15% higher. We're at about $76 a ton, $73 to $76 a ton for asphalt, whereas this year it's $64 a ton. And we were seeing lower prices in recent years as well. So we're debating, we will have the right to rebid it. That doesn't impact your approval of the contract. It's just an update that we're keeping our pulse on this, and we may ask MDOT to rebid it. We're not sure yet.
Are there any questions? John?
And Chris, for this, the asphalt, that's across the state, right? I mean, or probably across the country?
We're seeing it everywhere,
Okay.
yeah. It's even higher increases in some areas of the state.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just such a high demand, even in our recycling program, and I'll mention this in the monthly update, we're having supply issues, and
Okay.
prices are climbing rapidly.
Okay. Just want to make sure that Jackson's not being singled out or...
No, not at all. Our relationships with our contractors are very strong,
Awesome.
and it's just what everybody is seeing.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'd be looking for, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil.
Chris, had we went ahead with our own asphalt plant, would we be experiencing an increase also because of the products you need to put your asphalt mix together? Would we be experiencing this increase also?
It's hard to say, crystal ball looking forward. We're watching Lenawee County and their bids. It's the oil that we're talking about, obviously, we call it performance grade 5828 oil. It's also what we use in recycling. To give you a sense of costs, it's ranged in the past few years between $500 to $600 per ton. Currently, Lenawee has a bid for its entire season at around $300 and some odd dollars. It's between $300 and $400 per ton, so it was fairly good for them this year. We currently pay for the superheated asphalt at a little over $500 a ton, which is, we thought, very good, because it does cost quite a bit to heat it to what we need. But there is talk of it going higher yet. We've heard $800 a ton numbers lately. So if we had our own asphalt plant, one of the factors there that even back when I was studying this, if we're paying more, so is everybody else. So their prices are doing this, our prices should still be here, because we're controlling costs on all kinds of other elements of the process.
Or we'd still be paying more for the oil mix?
Yeah, everybody's paying more though. They're paying more for aggregate. Aggregate's in short supply as well. I predicted this, a lot of us have predicted it in the industry with the road funding bill. It's a good thing, we need to fix our roads and so forth, but it is floodgates into the industry that has contracted over the last decade. So they're trying to build capacity, and I have to give credit to a lot of the contractors. They're doing a good job of adding crews and training new people.
So we would actually be experiencing a parallel increase, it'd just be on a smaller scale because our prices are lower per ton.
Correct, yeah.
So it would be affecting us in the same,
Right.
similar fashion.
We could mitigate against other risks and other factors. So we're looking at what I call a supply chain strategy for our oil for next year that involves a primary, secondary, and tertiary source. So we want to make sure that if supplier number one can't give it to us, supplier number two can, and if they can't give it to us, we can go to supplier number three. We might even want another one in the backdrop. They might be further away. Maybe the price would be higher, but at least it doesn't stop us in our tracks with construction.
Thank you.
The same strategy would apply to an asphalt plant.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, commissioners? Be looking for a motion to send to the full board.
So moved. Support.
Motion's been made and supported. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're on to the monthly report.
Thank you. I want to quickly introduce a new member of our team. Carly Diggy is here. She's an administrative specialist with our team. Can you see her, Phil? Do I need to move? Am I the big guy blocking? So I invited her here so she could see what we go through and how long-winded we are when we speak to you each morning. But I wanted her mostly to see how her work on this monthly report reaches you and how we review it and so forth. So I trust you've read it all in great detail and earnest. And she did a great job polishing it up for us. I think it looks better than many of our reviews have in the past. So without belaboring the points within, unless you have questions, I just want to point out a couple things. One is we've been a bit stressed here lately with the lockout. Not sure if you've heard much about it, but our Summit Township project is basically stopped in its tracks right now because of the MIDA's directive to lock out the Operators Engineers Union. So we have met with our contractors. We've also talked with our one of the county's attorneys about our options, and we basically did not accept the notice requesting a delay. and an extension. We basically told them we need them to get back to work, so stay tuned on that. That conversation is new, and they are doing what they can to keep the project moving. They're pulling together the laborers that they can. They're talking to their partnering contractors that are not impacted by the shutdown. So stay tuned. But it is maddening for us because we have roads open that need pavement immediately, especially with the rain and so forth in the forecast. Correct. Correct. So our team is working on a press release. We just didn't know what to say last week, to be honest. So we're going to at least say that we're working on it, and this is a factor. Maybe personalized door hanger style emails.
Yeah, so I don't have to deal with 3 to 12
Rodney? Rod? Okay. Who is MIDAR? Is this a union or something that represent our workers, or is it supply chain workers? Who's?
It's the Michigan Infrastructure Trade Association, which is it's an association that contractors pay membership fees to, and basically when it comes to union negotiations, in this case, they have power of attorney. Most contractors sign up with them, and so they do the negotiating on behalf of the contractors as a whole. So there have been, I guess the contract expired in June, and no progress has been made in negotiations. So MIDA issued a directive just before Labor Day saying that they were locking out the union members starting this last Tuesday, right after Labor Day.
Those are like the aggregate haulers and asphalt suppliers, or who?
The more advanced operators, paver operators, screed operators,
The equipment engineers.
the equipment engineers, yeah.
But these are not our employees.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, our employees have been fantastic, and we have a good relationship with them, no issues there. So, with any labor dispute, we try to be respectful of the process and all, but we have residents and a public to represent here, and assurance is given, so we've got to keep things moving.
Thank you.
It's challenging for us. I-94 is shut down, just so you know as well. So this is statewide, and we've got a lot of sweating foreheads out there amongst my peers right now.
Any other questions? Daniel?
Good morning, Chris. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
I guess this is more of a comment than a question, or it might be a question if you could possibly explain what you would have someone do in this case. I got a call last week from a constituent from Blackman Township is where he said he lived. He said that he was driving and a stone or something came up from a truck, hit his windshield. He tried to get the driver to pull over. Driver wouldn't pull over. He said he actually went out to the JDOT facility and stopped in and spoke to someone. He said he spoke to the person in charge. He didn't have a name, but said that he was told that happens all the time, and pretty much told that there was nothing we could do about it, or nothing that could be done about his windshield. So I just figured I would mention it. I asked the gentleman to shoot me an email of the incident so I could have some more details to give you, but I haven't heard from him since he gave me a call. So I just was curious. One, I just want to bring that to your attention. Two, just to ask, what should someone do in that situation?
Well, it is a case-by-case review. Bob, you're familiar with this incident, from what I understand, correct?
Yes, I am. I was the one that he talked to when he came into JDOT. We did have a conversation, but I think we probably ought to talk about that offline, if you don't mind. I can fill you in on that. I did email you on that incident right after it happened. But
We're basically seeking to remedy the problem, so we can give you the details. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Administrator Overton on the transfer administrative relationship of 911.
I think you've all had opportunity to review review the proposal. Are there questions?
No questions? To the full board?
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Administrator Controller on the Circuit Court Appointment Services Contract.
Deborah, you want to give us the overview or fill us in or answer questions, please?
Sure. Circuit Court, their court-appointed attorney contracts have been expired for quite some time, and in conjunction with Judge Jordan and Charles Adkins, the court administrator, we've worked together. We had these posted back in July so that the attorneys could have an opportunity to reapply, or if you will. And I met with Judge Jordan and Charles again a week or so, 2 weeks ago, and we decided on some contracts to be appointed. I am working with Brad Berlinski right now, so I don't have a final contract at this point. He called me late Friday, so I need to give him a call back today. But he is reviewing the official contract that will be signed, so I don't have a copy of that right now in board docs, but I'll have it hopefully by Tuesday for the board meeting. But the RFQs are listed there for you, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Commissioners, any questions? John?
Just more of a comment, Deborah. I noticed that this is still subject to change depending on what we ultimately formalize with the state. Is that correct?
Correct. In the RFQ, we did add language, and we will put it in the contract as well. In the event that we need to modify or terminate the contracts to comply with MIDC, then the contracts could be terminated. Correct.
Motion to move to the full board. Any other questions? Need a motion to move on to the full board?
So moved.
Support.
Motion's been made and supported. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Number 5, need a motion to pay the claims.
So moved.
Support.
Motion's been made and supported. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Other minutes? None. October reporting schedule. It's not listed. So we've come to the second portion of public comment. Is there any public comment? Public comment? Public comments closed. Committee member comments. John?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank each individual kind of collectively for giving the reports. All positive things, Jackson, moving forward, other than our trials and tribulations with the union regarding the road work moving forward. I'm sure that'll get worked out, but just, I mean, all positive things moving forward. It's good. It's good to get that message out. I appreciate it.
Phil?
I'd like to thank Rodney Waltz for a nice meeting. Thank you.
Well, I get lucky. No further business from affairs and agencies. Adjournment to call to the chair.